We had 44 players that didn't practice today. And they hadn't practiced probably for the last 3 or 4 practices.
Harsh words from head coach Jeremy Pruitt. We'll go over that and a lot more here on the inaugural episode of Tennessee Fan Talk. Thanks again for tuning in, Vols fans. Let's hear a little bit more from the interview with head coach Jeremy Pruitt.
Just something that we're going through. Obviously, as we ramp up the testing, we've had a few more positives, which that's going to happen. The big issue for us has been really the contact tracing, and that's where we've had tons of players. I think, to be exact, to this date, we've had 48 guys that have missed at least 14 days through the quarantine, and 4 of those guys have been quarantined twice.
Very hard for Pruitt and his Vols. Look, Pruitt has been very public about the team's issues with the COVID and the contact tracing. He went on further in the interview to say that his last scrimmage was extremely sloppy. Both the offense and the defense had serious issues, which, was a direct result of the lack of practice. Both were offsides a lot, quarterbacks not making good throws, putting the ball on the ground a lot. And something that Tennessee has dealt with for years is the poor tackling. Now, while it has gotten a little better under Pruitt's regime, we still see some sloppy tackling. And, of course, the Vols aren't the only team with this issue. Not every team is as public as Tennessee is, but they're suffering from the same lack of personnel in each practice. Lane Kiffin went further to say that if they were in SEC play, he might not be able to field a team. And while this is the most pressing issue at hand, with who's going to play, who's not going to play, we've heard a couple teams saying they've had to 12 to 13 starters that are not going to make the first game. The Vols have more issues to combat before this Saturday's game at South Carolina. So we'll talk about a few of these things in the preseason episode of this Tennessee Fan Talk. We'll discuss topics including the Vols season's must-do, the roster losses and positive returns, and the leaders that are going to step into the spotlight, and we'll touch a little bit on the schedule there at the end. So we all love the 50-yard bomb to an open receiver, right? It's so exciting. Or even the 50-50 ball that comes down in our favor. But the ability to create such dramatic plays comes from keeping the defense tight to the line of scrimmage with a fantastic run game. Being able to run the ball is what Tennessee really, what they used to be about, what they've always been known for. And what Pruitt, said that he was going to bring back. In 2019, that wasn't the case. In SEC standings, not overall, just in SEC, the Vols ranked 12th. They only placed ahead of Florida, where Trask was doing such a great job passing and keeping the ball himself on some quarterback sneaks, and that they didn't have to do a lot of running. And Vandy was the other team behind us, which, that's enough to be said. So Tennessee has to get back to running the ball. When they can effectively run the ball, it will open up the passing game. We all know that. And we know what Jarrett Garantano can't do, but we also know what he can do. Jarrett is one of 3 Tennessee quarterbacks, the other 2 being Tyler Bray and Peyton Manning, to throw over 400 yards in a single game. And, he had the big 415-yard against Missouri last season. So Tennessee has to have leaders on both sides of the ball. They got to step up. Pruitt and company are recruiting extremely well. Tennessee is gaining some fantastic prospects. They're grabbing some decommits from other schools. And of course, they've lost some commitments since this non-practice COVID season started. There's some out there that say that with Tennessee being a big part of their campus being health and science, that they're a little bit more stringent than what the SEC requires. Once again, that's just out there. I haven't seen that reported from Tennessee or from anyone else involved. For a bright Vol future, the current class must step up and put on a good show this year after an embarrassing start last year, and it was embarrassing. The seniors and juniors, they owned up to their mistakes. They took responsibility. They pushed harder themselves. They pushed their teammates harder. And, of course, ended the season on a 7-game win streak that really raised Vol stock. And it's up to the 25 seniors this year to continue that trend. Although the Vols lost some big names to the NFL this year, the team still has tons of talent, both sides of the ball. They really do. The Vols have added some graduate transfers to help in areas of need. Among the list of exciting returning players includes an individual always worth mentioning. While most people recognize him for, making it through health concerns, that was, pretty much sure to end his career, most did not know of his continuing devotion to his team. Even while dismissed from play, Trey Smith was able to keep his scholarship and battled on with his blood clots with Tennessee's finest leaders in healthcare. They really helped him figure this thing out, and all the while he was looking after his teammates. Just recently, Trey Smith was asked about the Cade Mays transfer, and this is what he said about his potential teammate.
I always wanted to play with Cade since high school. I remember talking about Mr. Football, different things like that, following each other over the years, staying connected. And then finally we get to the point where he came back home. He's at Tennessee. We're going to play with each other. And then, see a decision that's basically trying to shoot down the hard work and discredit this kid who, at the end of the day, he's coming to work every day. He's busting his butt. He's going to practice. The people who are making these decisions are just sitting in the meeting room, just drinking coffee and just looking at paper. So it's really asinine to say the least, man. We're talking about a season where eligibility doesn't even matter. You're not going to clear this kid. So at the end of the day, man, we can only focus on what we can focus. We can control the controllables that we can control. If the people eating in meeting rooms and wearing suits and walking around all day don't want to clear this kid who's busting his butt, bleeding, sweating, getting hit on the field consistently, that's their choice and that's their option, But at the end of the day, do right by a kid who's working hard, working his butt off, and trying to be great. That's how I look at it.
Thanks. Of course, within days of this interview, the NCAA approved the Knoxville native junior. We're not saying that that Trey's words did the trick, but they certainly couldn't hurt. And if Trey Smith was gunning for me, I'd probably rethink my position. Another Vol player that has stepped up to the leadership plate is running back Ty Chandler. Instead of looking down at his people behind him and younger player Eric Gray, Ty had this to say about him.
Oh, no doubt, man. Like they say, iron sharpens iron, and I'm just grateful to be able to be in the room with him. He has a great skill set he brings to the game, and he's even taught me things. We talk about stuff all the time, and we just feed off each other. And yeah, I'm grateful to be able to go out there and compete with him. I feel like he gets me better. He gets the whole team better, so I love it.
Ty did go on to say that if he was challenged to get out there on a 40, that he would still beat the young sophomore. As mentioned earlier, Tennessee rushing yards were among the worst in the SEC, with the top 2 players by the Vols being Ty Chandler and Eric Gray. Ty put up a total of 655 yards, averaging 4.9 yards per carry, with only 3 touchdowns for the year, while Eric had only 539 yards, 94 of which came off of the single play, but he averaged 5.3 and scored 4 touchdowns. Both of those guys look to really improve on that this year, and Tennessee's very good offensive line, very old, because it's a group of seniors. Offensive line should help with that. The Vols will get their chance to show what they've been working towards this Saturday at 7:30, of course. So we've chatted a little bit about what the Vols have to do. We've chatted about a little bit about their leaders and what they need to work on and who's going to step up. The 25 guys really have to show the young ones what is expected at Tennessee. Now we kind of want to run through this schedule a little bit. So ESPN has predicted the Vols to win 3.8 games, and they have shown them to have the 10th toughest schedule in football this year. And, a lot goes into these predictions, and they've been fairly accurate over the past couple years. First one, Saturday night's game, has gone to the Vols, being favored as 3, as the two teams they've had some close one over the past 5 years, excluding last year's 41-21 blowout. The Vols will then have a home opener against Mizzou, and is expected to be another close game, with the Vols favored for now. With Mizzou opening up against Alabama, there'll still be some unknowns as they roll into Week 2. Week 3 will be the Vols' second toughest game this year, with a trip to Athens. Georgia still has a lot of unknowns, like who the quarterback will be, which is a big one. And right now, the Vols are expected to lose, but by single digit. Moving on to Week 4, the Vols will host Kentucky, where the Wildcats haven't won in Knoxville since 1984. And as it sits right now, it's a 50-50 game. And we'll know more as we get through the first 3 weeks for that one. October 24th, the Vols will host the rival Alabama. The Vols have been given a 7% chance to win that game, but the Vols have a 13-year-old chip on their shoulder, and they're looking for payback for that close one last year. And you can bet your bottom dollar that Jarrett Garantano is not going to be swapping plays on that one. November 7th, the Vols will travel to Arkansas, where as long as they can keep the transfer Felipe Franks from passing over the middle, which is what happened year before last when they lost to him, they can keep him contained. The Vols will expect to win that one. November 14th is a really exciting game, as Texas A&M will make their first trip to Knoxville since joining the SEC in 2012. For now, ESPN analysts predict the Vols to lose this one, and it's, to be expected. Texas A&M is a worthy opponent, and they've gotten better and better over the years, and within this year or the next one or two, I expect them to give Alabama a really big run for the West. For some reason, the November 21st game in Auburn has been chosen as Tennessee's third hardest game, even with the 18-point victory from 2018, and not much change for either team. ESPN does predict a loss for the Vols on this one. We'll see if Pruitt & Company can repeat the 2018 win. Thanksgiving will be fantastic this year in Middle Tennessee, because the Vols will be heading to Nashville for what has been dubbed as the Vols' easiest game. Tennessee is favored with an 80% chance to win the game. And which, of course, sadly, means December 5th is the end of the regular season. For the Vols facing Florida in Knoxville, the last time the schedule ended this way, Tennessee had beat Florida by a field goal in 2001. Well, there you have it. There's the schedule. We got a simple yet successful game plan. Go back to our roots. Start running the ball. We have the talent, and Pruitt demands discipline. And it's time for the Vols to scream national champions from atop Rocky Top. I do, however, want to leave you with one question. ESPN playoff picture has Oklahoma, Alabama, Clemson, and Ohio State now that the Big Ten has come into it. Two things. No conference is as tough as the SEC, so, Clemson should just be out of it with just ACC play. They do have Notre Dame in this year, but, Miami's a mess, and Florida State hasn't been around for a while, so it's just other than a couple mentionables, the ACC is just not at the level. The Big Ten is only playing 8 games, and most of it is easy. Nebraska's not what they used to be. We understand that as Tennessee fans. And you have Michigan and Penn State as your only other opponents, and 8 games. That's just it's not going to be fair. So, is this the year for 3 SEC teams to be in the playoffs? I think it is. So let's for more talk on that, tune into the SEC Fan Talk for more on that, and then just SEC overall topics. I want to thank you again for listening to the preseason Tennessee Fan Talk. We'll see you next week with the Vols being 1-0.